Hi everybody, me again, another video for you. Thank you to all those that watched my videos so far. As I said before, the reason these videos is trying to help people who suffer depression and people who look after people who suffer depression and not quite sure what's happening. Today I'd like to talk to you about some of the signs and symptoms that go along with depression. The list is not exhaustive. There can be many signs that someone is suffering or about to go through a depressive episode. I can only talk from my own personal experience because the way depression affects people is different for everybody. So it's not always the same. But personally, I mean, for instance, one of the signs that shows that I'm not feeling too well is I lose interest in things that I like to do in my free time. For instance, I play sports. I play a game called pétanque, which is a French ball game. And to the end of last season, I didn't play at all because I was depressed and couldn't face going out and being with all those people as much as they're good friends and teammates. I found it just too much. So one of the signs of someone suffering is that they lose interest in their pastimes. I also fish a lot. Recently, I've been out with a friend fishing quite a lot, but I used to go out every weekend or every other weekend. I hardly do that at all now. Mood swings are very, very prominent with depression. One moment, person can seem upbeat and happy, and the next moment they could be down in the depths of grumpiness, which makes it very difficult for people to understand. I'll give you an example of this. Yesterday, I was quite a happy chappy until about 7 o'clock in the evening. I suddenly went downhill into a low mood again. So the mood swings are quite an obvious thing, really. On top of that, you've got self-esteem and the way people look after themselves or don't, as the case may be. Someone who is normally clean-shaven, well-dressed, combs their hair, it takes time to make themselves look spick and span. Sometimes that can go and, they lose interest in making themselves look good. That can be quite difficult for people who are close to them because they see this person who's normally, top dollar. Suddenly, all of a sudden, they're not having a shave, they're not having a bath or a shower, they wear the same clothes day in, day out. And it's very difficult for someone close to you and personal to you to actually come up to you and say, hey, you haven't shaved all week. Are you okay? Because it's quite a personal thing. You don't want to offend a person that's not shaving or washing, but then again, you want to say to them, you really need to take yourself in hand and tidy yourself up. The problem, of course, is that the person suffering depression doesn't want to tidy themselves up. They don't want to look nice and look good because they don't want to interact with people. So that's a really difficult one to deal with. I have, since before Christmas, I have my false teeth. I don't wear them very often, although they're very comfortable and they fit and they make me look 100 times better than I do without them. It's actually being bothered to go through the rigmarole of cleaning them, getting them ready, fixing them in, learning to talk with them because at the moment pronunciation of certain letters and words are very difficult, and it's having the want to do that. So that it's things like that make it even harder for people who are caring for someone who's suffering because all they see is the person they love dearly just go downhill with such a bang, and it can cause the person who's caring a lot of distress. And all I can say to you really is that it's just part of it. It's not a very nice part of it, but it is part of the illness. And if you can try and understand that a little bit, then that will help you understand why the person feels that they do. So people who are depressed, like myself, change their routine, really, because my daily routine would normally be, get up in the morning, get yourself washed and dressed, make yourself look smart, go to work, have a day at work, come home, have dinner, and enjoy a nice quiet evening. At the moment, that's not happening. So the whole routine goes out the window. So there's no structure, there's no real structure to the day. And it makes it very difficult for the person, like I said, not just for the person that's suffering, but the person who's caring for the person who's suffering, makes it extremely difficult, because all they see is someone who not looking after themselves. And that makes it very, very hard. So what I want you to try and think about today is, if you know someone, or you're close to someone that you think might be suffering, just keep an eye on them, and just not take notes particularly, but just try and notice little differences to what their normal daily routine. If they normally go out down a pub for a drink with the mates, or they might like a game of darts, or they might want to, go out for a walk or something. If that suddenly stops and there's no physical reason, that could be, and I'm not saying it is, but it's possible they could be suffering a depressive episode, or about to suffer a depressive episode. And if you know someone that's definitely suffering depression, this will hopefully give an insight into what's going on. For those of you that suffer like myself, we know how hard it is, because we're there and we're in it. As much as I try and explain to people that care about me, hey, look, this is not your fault, this is down to my illness, it's still hard for people to understand why you're doing this to yourself, and the point is, we're not doing it to ourselves because we want to. We're doing it to ourselves because that's how we are at the moment, and there's nothing I can do personally to change that. I can try and divvy myself along and have a shave. I might have a shave every other day or every few days. I think it's been about 3 or 4 days since I shaved now. It's the hat again, because I can't bother to do anything with my hair. It's not just for the input on this video. It's just the fact that I thought, I'm going to do a video, I better put a hat on because I look awful. And normally it wouldn't worry me, but I know that these videos are watched, which is great. And I thought, well, I'd make some sort of effort. It's not for me, believe me, it's only for you. I wouldn't do it for myself because I don't feel I'm worth it. So that kind of gives you an idea of how I'm feeling at the moment. I'm a bit better than I was the last video I did. I did get upset, but then I was upset. I had having a bad day. And the whole reason for that video was to give someone an insight of what it's like for someone suffering, like myself, having a bad day. We're not going to have all good days. People think, people work all the time, and it's not a knock on that. But people who work all the time, they think, oh, I'd love to have a day off, or I'd love to have a couple of days off. And believe me, after 2 or 3 weeks sitting here looking at 4 walls, it's not all that much fun. And yes, I could quite easily put some clothes on, put a coat on and go out for a walk, but I can't. Not because I don't want to, but I'm not able to. And I love walking. I love walking. It inspires me to write. A lot of my poetry that I write is from my walks. So, that's something else that I've not done recently. I've not been writing. I have plenty of poems, that I can look at and I can read, but I've not written anything. So there's a great example of someone who's lost interest in something they love to do. I love writing, and I've not done anything for a while now. And there's all sorts of things that happen during a depressive episode that to normal people who aren't suffering, or someone who's not suffering at the present, would be nothing really. Like, for instance, I'm still waiting on the DVLA to tell me whether I can drive or not on the medication I'm on. Now, they wrote to my psychiatrist in September, and they still have not had a reply. I had a letter last Saturday saying, sorry, we still not had a reply. And until they do, we can't make a decision, which means I can't drive. Now, luckily, I've managed to get a bus pass from the Royal Borough, which is great. But it means my car's sitting on a drive rotting away. And, you know, to some people that might say, well, I can't drive. Well, so what? You know, I can get around on the bus, I can get around on the train. It's not that important. Well, it is, because to me, that's a huge part of what I do. I drive everywhere, you know. I pick people up, I drop them off, I go into town, I go, you know, visit in different places. I can't do that. You know, I can go locally. Yeah, of course I can. Buses and trains are quite good. But for any distance, or to do a week's shopping, for instance, it's a struggle because I've got no car. Well, I have, but it's rotting on the drive, as I say. So things like that, that might seem petty to most people, are huge for people that are suffering. And I think more needs to be done. I mean, it needs to be done there, really. So, you know, that's just something else to think. Maybe I'll do a video on how slow processes can affect people who are suffering depression, for benefits and stuff like that, you know, because it does make a hell of a difference when you're thinking about things that really other people wouldn't really worry about, are like mountains to us. And all the anxiety comes out, and you start panicking, and am I going to get this benefit? Am I going to get that benefit? When can I drive my car? Will I be able to drive my car? And it all adds up. Anyway, I digress. So a lot of the signs and symptoms of depression are low moods, high moods. The swings can be within minutes, or take hours, or even days. Loss of enjoyment in pastimes that you like to do, or the person does. Self-care is huge. The self-care goes out the window, really, for me personally, when I'm depressed. Some people I know, it goes the other way completely, and they go way over the top. But for me personally, self-care goes out the window. So don't shave for days. Don't worry about my presentation too much, which is really, really hard for people around me to understand. Another part of depression, maybe a sign or symptom, if you like, could be work. Obviously, a person can't face going to work, and they go down to doctors and say that they're not sleeping, or, you know, they can't handle things at the moment, and doctor signs them off for a week. And that could be the start of a slippery slope. As I said in one of my videos before, the problem is, of course, when that week's over and you need to go back to work, people don't want to go back because they're worried or frightened of what their colleagues or their managers are going to say. So that can be a real issue as well. I think also a lot of people that struggle with depression do struggle with going outside, into the public domain, if you like, into town and things like that, which is why I haven't been on walks, really. I do go into town, but I very much keep myself to myself. I will go for a walk along the river and meet up with a friend while he's fishing, but because I'm sitting underneath a bivvy or a brolly, nobody takes any notice of me, and I'm happy with that. To be in a crowd of people in a shop drives me insane, because I just can't deal with the amount of people in there at the time. So that might be another thing that you notice as someone who could be suffering, is that they'd rather stand outside the shop than go in, or they might not look to go onto a busy railway station, or they might look for an empty carriage on a train, something like that. You know, that they're all signs and symptoms of someone who could be suffering depression. And to be honest with you, there are a few people who suffer that, I mean, I know one personally who actually doesn't change at all. You know, they still look after themselves well, they still sleep well, they still at the job, they go to work every day, they still do their sports and pastimes, but inside they're crying out for help because they're suffering. A lot of people won't admit to depression. This is where the stigma comes in, because they're so frightened of how they'll be judged by other people. And that's why I'm doing this, because I want the stigma to end. The stigma that surrounds depression, it's not very nice, and we need to make sure that it doesn't carry on. And that's going to be a hell of a long road, I know, but I'm willing to step on that road and do whatever I can to help end that stigma. There's so many more things that happen to people when they're depressed or about to go through a depressive episode. There's so many things. Like I said to you at the beginning, this list is not exhaustive. You know, the low moods, the loss of interest and all that, that's just part of it. There's so much more to it than that. And I just hope that some of what I've given you today will give you an idea about how people feel and how it affects them inside. I guess there's so many things that I could do videos on about depression and mental health in general. But what I'd like to do today is I'd like to ask you to give me some feedback on what you want to talk about, really, because, you know, there's all sorts of things with depression: medication, psychiatrists, doctors, loss of interest, lack of self-esteem. You know, there's so many things that go on behind the scenes with depression. So you can leave me comments under the videos, or I have an email address dedicated just for this. That email address is MackyJ, that's MACCYJ, then the number 22 at gmail.com. So that's MackyJ22 at gmail.com. If anybody would like to email me and ask me to talk about anything specific or anything particular to do with depression and mental health in general, then I'd be happy to look at that email. I will reply to every single one, I promise you. And I will look at doing a video on that subject matter between that and the time you email me and the next video like I do. So send your emails to me. Tell me what you want to talk about. Tell me what you want me to talk about and what you need to hear. Whether you're caring for somebody or whether you're suffering, it doesn't matter. And I will do what I can to guide you and help you with that. I'm not offering a counselling service. I'm not a counsellor. I have no professional qualifications in mental health at all, or medically whatsoever. So I'm not offering a counselling service. What I'm asking you is for feedback on my videos and to ask if there's something particular you want me to talk about, whether it be medication, psychiatrists, doctors, whatever it happens to be, it doesn't matter. Just email me. I will reply to you and I'll look at doing a video on that. So coming to the end of this video now, just trying to think of some more signs and symptoms that you might find someone who's suffering. One for me, again, personally, because I can only talk from personal experience really, was actually admitting that there's something wrong. And for me, that's really the first big step to recovery. Once you could admit to someone that, yes, I'm suffering and yes, I need help, that's the road to getting better. And your first port of call, I believe, should be your GP and say to them, look, I'm really struggling at the moment, don't feel well, can't sleep, whatever it happens to be. And they will guide you with whatever you need. So part of that, I guess the sign that you're not too good is actually having to do that and being able to do that, you know. So look out for that, because I would rather someone take me down a doctor and say, I don't think my friend, colleague is very well, than sit back and do nothing and hope for the best, you know. So as much as it might seem a bit antiquated to say, right, I'm taking you down the doctors, I'll come with you, at least that way it's a start onto the road to getting better. Because sometimes people who suffer, like me, haven't got the want to even ask for help. So keep that in mind when if you know somebody or you feel that somebody is going downhill, you know, they won't always be able to make that first move. They won't always be able to have the guts to admit that there's something wrong, and that could be quite important. I hope the video has been informative for you. And like I say, please email me, give me some feedback. Are these videos helping in any way? So, you know, whatever you can write, I will reply to you. All right, you take care, and I will see you all very, very soon in another video. Take care.